Our next speaker is Katherine Kerner. Kathy is our Deputy Associate Administrator for Exploration Systems Development. Thanks for joining us today, Kathy.
Thank you very much. Jake, can you confirm that you can hear and see me okay?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
I'm holed up in a corner of an office here at the Kennedy Space Center this week. Let's see. So just to start off, I know a lot of folks probably look at me and see an unfamiliar face. And so a little bit of background, I started my career after graduate school at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California, doing lunar Mars work. Spent over 30 years with the agency doing mostly operations, but also working in various programs, both International Space Station program and on Orion. And also spent about 5 years running the Human Health and Performance Directorate at the Johnson Space Center, learning all about how we keep our astronauts alive and performing well for space missions. And most recently, as of just March of this year, became the Deputy Associate Administrator for Exploration Systems Development. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the organization. Can you go to the next slide, please? Most folks may or may not be familiar with ESDMD. It is a relatively new mission directorate. OMB and Congress, and in conjunction with NASA, separated the Human Exploration Operations Mission Directorate into two distinct organizations, and I get the privilege of helping Jim Free run ESDMD. We are tasked basically with planning and developing all of the lunar Artemis missions and planning for Mars activities. And what we're really doing is we're trying to establish a blueprint for human exploration of the solar system. So what we're doing at the moon, we're going to recreate at Mars and then to destinations beyond eventually. Just as we developed low Earth orbit and did a lot of research and studies in low Earth orbit, we're going to and then expanded to have commercialization of low Earth orbit. Our intention is to do the same in the lunar environment. As we study the moon and learn more about it, we're going to establish an industry base in and around the lunar environment as we learn and before we go on to do activities at Mars. Let's see, the three big organizations that we have in ESDMD are the Artemis campaign development. That's where Mark Kirsich is really orchestrating what we're going to do for Artemis 1, 2, 3, 4, and beyond. Common exploration systems, those are all of the established elements of our exploration activities. Orion, SLS, and EGS, those eventually will all be transitioned over to the SOMD, our sister organization that was once part of HEO. And then Mars Campaign Development Division is still under formulation. What I want to point out to you about this box, though, is that we did actually pull Moon to Mars architecture development out into a separate organization. And that's because Jim Free felt it was so important for us to place a really strong emphasis on what we're doing with the architecture and making sure we're coordinating that across mission directorates, that we set that up at the highest level within the organization. And I'm actually the person who's running that office in addition to being the deputy there. We are also organized in order to make sure that all of the decisions that we make within the Artemis architecture and our exploration architecture really get filtered down into all aspects of the organization, so that we are not only collaborating with our international stakeholders, but also our industry stakeholders and stakeholders both internal and external to the agency. Can you go to the next slide for me, please? See, I think most folks have seen this slide as well. This is really just giving a perspective of the evolution of a notional evolution of how we're going to explore in the lunar environment. I think most people are familiar with the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter. It was originally a joint effort between human exploration and science, and it's fitting that's really leading the way for us as it is continuing to study the moon. We're using the data collected by that orbiter to help us develop our strategy for exploring the solar South Polar region, excuse me. And we're also making steady progress towards Artemis 1. The spacecraft is going through a number of tests as on the integrated SLS system, and we're hoping to launch that here this summer. Testing is really continuing and ongoing for that. It's really our first demonstration mission of what we hope will become an annual cadence of Artemis missions. That mission, though, in particular, it's carrying a number of CubeSats as well as some payloads on Orion that will help us better understand how to keep our astronauts safe during Artemis missions. We're also developing Gateway. Gateway is going to be our space station, so to speak, around the moon. And it's really going to give us a lot of access to the lunar surface on a weekly cadence so that we can not only do science in the lunar environment, but we can also have access to the surface. And then, as you know, we're working on those missions farther out that will give us extended range and capabilities on the lunar surface and give us some more continuous presence there. I think that's all I have for time. Happy to answer questions later. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Kathy.